So, thank you everyone for your time today. And again, thank you, Phil, for an opportunity to speak. As an undergraduate, I wasn't expecting sort of 600 people, but that's fine. I'm happy to be here. So, let's get into it. So, I want to speak to you all today regarding how current AI guidelines are punitive and view the university's role as preventing AI misuse, whereas I believe we should be instead promoting skill acquisition in AI for a variety of benefits to students. But first, a bit about me. So, I was diagnosed with ADHD and autism 3 years ago. As Phil said, I'm a final year psychology undergraduate student, and pertinent to the presentation, I'm a research associate for a study on disabled students' experiences of higher education. So, when I began university, I was allocated disabled students allowance. As part of my DSA package, I received a paid subscription to Grammarly Pro. In 2022, Grammarly was able to correct my grammar, as the name implies, which for me generally meant just removing extra commas. It was able to reword sentences and suggest tone adjustments, for example, if I was writing a formal or informal email. By 2025, Grammarly contains generative AI. It was able to rewrite entire pages of work for me and had a Google Chrome plugin, allowing for its use across nearly every website I can type in. Due to this rise in AI use, Leeds Trinity University began their AI guidelines in 2023. These AI guidelines were broadly twofold. You must include a disclosure statement on how you have used AI, for example, in planning or editing, and there was guidance provided which stipulated a number of ways AI can be used in the assessment. At face value, it appears that the guidelines are straightforward and prescriptive, but neurodiverse interpretations of language can often be more nebulous. For example, someone who is neurodiverse may feel confused by the terminology when it is stated as a noun. A good way around this is to operationalize what you're stating. For example, instead of saying editing is permitted, one might say using AI to change the words for grammatical purposes. This makes it clear what the AI is doing and how this impacts the document. By operationalizing the guidance, we begin to foster the development of AI literacy in students. The semantic difference between the concept of generative AI and AI used for editing is also very difficult for me. To me, AI is generating paragraphs to suggest in editing. There is perhaps a nuance that I'm not aware of, but this lack of clarity causes frustration and reduced confidence. With AI now being able to restructure whole paragraphs or essays, where is the threshold that editing ends and generation begins? We mustn't assume that this ambiguity automatically causes low confidence either. Instead, there may be false confidence, which can be detrimental to neurodiverse students' grades. For example, if I were to believe I correctly understood the guidelines, then use AI in error, for example, crossing the threshold from editing to generation, and consequently receive punitive action, I will now be much less confident than someone who is unsure of the guidelines. Or, in other words, being confidently incorrect, it will be hard to believe my confidence is well placed in the next assessment. As someone who is neurodiverse, there is an underpinning feeling of shame when I misunderstand things I am confident in, as often this is how neurodiverse people have felt throughout the education system thus far. However, I believe I have a suggestion for remediating the chance of misunderstanding guidelines. By using AI guidelines as a disciplinary reference, our goal becomes preventing unacademic behavior. Yet, since the 1960s, autistic people have been subject to environmental controls in an attempt to change behavior. A considerable portion of this was punitive, even to the degree of physical assault. Despite this, researchers at the time knew that environmental manipulation would not be sufficient to provide longitudinal changes in behaviors. Or, in other words, compliance does not equate to greater outcomes for autistic people. However, learning does. So consider, are we seeking to prevent the abuse of AI, or are we seeking to promote appropriate use of AI? If we aim to prevent AI misuse, we will provide warnings and defer to guidelines. In essence, we are promoting compliance over learning. Whereas, By promoting skill acquisition in using AI, we begin to provide opportunities to understand AI terminology and develop discretion in how AI is used within academic guidelines. By providing learning opportunities instead of compliance, these skills will be augmented in the student's toolkit, enabling them to fully utilize the power of AI without the fear of academic misconduct. I have some suggestions on how we might provide these opportunities. First, I suggest we consider using AI workshops to allow for AI skills to be developed in an environment that will not be graded towards a degree, alleviating performance anxiety and facilitating trial and error. We can include AI use in class. This allows for contextual understanding regarding AI use and allow for real-time feedback. Equally, it will consolidate AI literacy for academic faculty. Additionally, I encourage post-task discussion surrounding appropriate use, as this is particularly powerful in neurodiverse populations. By having a discussion, neurodiverse people can have the opportunity to view how others utilize discretion in their use of AI. There is an opportunity for cooperative learning and improving student experiences, as often neurodiverse people prefer to have social interactions that are structured. Discussion also allows for verbal processing, whereby neurodiverse people explain what they understand, receive feedback, and then confirm what they understand in a cycle that increases confidence and clarity. The key themes of prioritizing learning over compliance are backed up by primary research I have conducted with 2 members of LTU faculty. We conducted an online qualitative survey of self-identified disabled students at Leeds Trinity University from September 2023 to June 2024. I'm summarizing a template analysis here, so some of the themes are higher order or sub-themes, but I will be presenting them in their own right. So let's start with what makes higher education inaccessible. The first point is poor communication. Poor communication in the context of AI guidelines can be understood as heavy use of nouns, generative, editing, rather than operationalized, using AI to generate answers that you use in your essay. Further, intersectional problems compound inaccessibility. What does editing mean to an autistic international student? Or how does refer to the guidelines feel to a person with anxiety and dyslexia? There are tangible consequences to these points too. I want to suggest here that we consider the presented themes as 3 correlated dimensions of low confidence, self-esteem, and academic behavior. I believe the first 2 are pertinent to our previous examples, as if refer to the guidelines is the academic policy, it implies this is a simple and prescriptive document that will elucidate all your concerns. However, what happens if you don't understand this document? Simply, you will begin to feel different to everyone else, who apparently has no issue in understanding it, and you begin feeling like a failure, and worst of all, you begin to disengage. One preventative factor for disabled students is for the institution to begin anticipating the needs of their students. This makes them feel seen and validated and empowers them to use AI effectively and with skill. Hopefully, my presentation today is a step towards the ability to anticipate how to grow AI in an achievement paradigm and away from punishment. Thus, in conclusion, I firmly believe that using stable guidelines that explain all of the terminology surrounding AI and the explicit contextual use of AI is incredibly important for students, more so for disabled students, and still further for students who face intersectional barriers to education. Further, I strongly advocate for universities to consider AI use to be a skill and to trust students to engage in building their skills in using their discretion regarding AI use. And then finally, I want to dedicate my presentation today to my mum. It's been 13 days today since she passed away unexpectedly. And at that time, she left a 17-year-old boy who had been recently expelled from school and who had no idea what autism was. In 2012, AI was predictive. It was text on your BlackBerry mobile, was studying level 2 horticulture. My mum was so proud. People would complain to me about how she wouldn't stop talking about being a college student. If only she could see me now. So thank you for your time today. Sorry I've run over a little bit, and I'd love to hear any questions you've got.
Dino, you're amazing. You really are. What a talk. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Honestly, that was mind blowing. I've got goosebumps. Goosebumps. It's I'm so pleased we got you on. It was really really good, really powerful. So thank you so much. Um, okay, we've got a few hands up. If you do have a question for Dino, I think we've got about 4 minutes, so we'll see how we get on. So if you could put your hand up, we've got Alison. I'm just gonna unmute your mic. Alison, you should be able to unmute your mic.
I can if I can find the button. Hi, Dino. Dino
Hello.
is one of our students at Leeds Trinity, and just fantastic, Dino. Well done for that. But I just wanted to kind of, and it was just like Phil said, just very powerful hearing your perspective. So I led the AI kind of guidance and that kind of institutional kind of search for the first year between March 23 and March 24. And one of the difficulties that I found, or that we found as an institution, was getting the capacity and bandwidth to actually address accessibility. So AI for neurodivergent students, to actually write specific kind of policies and documents, and to actually do all of that work within a very small team who had that expertise was just really difficult, and that work, as far as I'm aware, is still outstanding. So I would be really grateful, kind of, on behalf of our institution, if there is any kind of guidance out there, links, policies that other institutions have documented that you're willing to share, or your experiences would be really good to hear.
Yeah, and I'd echo that as well. If you do have any kind of links to guidance, anything like that, pop it in the chat. We're going to collate all of those resources that we have in the chat today, and we will circulate that when we circulate the links to the recordings. So please use that, and we can create an additional resource. We've got so many people here today. I'm sure we can create something quite special around just this today. So yeah. I think we've probably got time for one more question. So if you do have a question for Dino, if you'd like to raise your hand. Just bear with me 1 second. Fran, I'm just going to unmute your mic. Oh, you should be able to speak.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, fabulous. I'm calling in from St Andrews up in Scotland, so our sunshine is just going, but hello everyone. So I'm in the School of Biology, and I'm a director of teaching, but also a disabilities coordinator. And I think I really want to echo what you've been saying, that a lot of the suggestions that people make, and I've seen it come up in the chat as well, switching to assessment styles that are all great for reducing the use of AI, or ideally removing the use of AI, seem to be being made without consideration of our students who are differently abled, or who have a background that means that they're going to be significantly disadvantaged by those different assessment styles. And it sounds like you've had quite a lot of experience of interacting with students who have been affected by that. Is there anything that you could summarize for us as educators and as people who interact with students regularly about what we're forgetting about that you think we should remember?
I think the main thing for me pertinent to this conversation was that I didn't choose for Grammarly to become more powerful. I was really happy at the time with the DSA provision where it would just do the grammar, and I became increasingly concerned because I was purposely not engaging with AI, because to me that was a sort of minefield, if you like. And one of my concerns was the DSA supplied software. The only way that I am receiving support externally in relation to writing styles and grammar and things like that was becoming and evolving to be much more powerful than I actually wanted it to be. And there was no way to curb that power. So now there's no settings on these software whereby I can ask it to only do very small adjustments. It will try and redo the whole paragraph. And so from my perspective, it's worth acknowledging that disabled students are, for most of the time, eating scraps from the table. And so if AI is a powerful business model, then Grammarly is going to follow that trend for its shareholders. And I appreciate that. But ultimately, it means that disabled people who are quite happy to not learn about AI are now being forced to learn about AI because their tools are being augmented with a technology that, frankly, we didn't ask for and we were quite happy to not use. Is another burden for us to learn, I suppose.
No, that's really insightful, and that's something that we've had as well, is that we've suggested that students use Grammarly, and then we suddenly realised that we were saying don't use Grammarly, but all the students that have a disabilities contact were getting a completely different message. So that's really informative. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. You're on mute, Phil.
You'd think after 30 webinars I'd have got this down by now, but no. Unfortunately, we're to time now, so we are going to have to move on. But if you do have any questions for Dino, please pop them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. And we can kind of provide a response if Dino has got to dash off. But I just wanted to say thank you again, Dino. Your insights, your experience, it's just been so powerful and so amazing. So thank you. Really good.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.